The message from my wife arrived just after 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I was already at our country house, settling in for a quiet weekend. Rachel often escaped there whenever work became stressful, and I always encouraged it. I believed everyone deserved time to recharge. I typed back a simple reply, "Take care, enjoy the weekend." Then I went back to my screen. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Tom, my neighbor across the road. We'd lived near each other for almost 10 years. Tom was not the kind of person who enjoyed gossip or creating drama. If anyone else had sent the message I was about to read, I probably wouldn't have believed a single word of it. But Tom had always been honest with me, even when the truth was uncomfortable. His text was short, but impossible to ignore. "Daniel, I wasn't sure whether to tell you this, but a guy in a red Ferrari just pulled into your driveway. They're kissing in the yard like they don't care who's watching." I stared at my phone for almost a full minute, not breathing. When I finally typed back, I sent only 6 words. "I've got a plan. You in?" Tom answered almost immediately. "Tell me what you need." Instead of jumping in my car, I called him directly. "Are they still outside?" I asked. He lowered his voice. "Yeah. They're drinking wine on the porch now. They honestly look like they own the place." That sentence hurt more than I expected, because technically, they didn't own anything there. I had purchased that property years before Rachel and I were married, paid for it with my own savings, and it remained legally in my name alone. Rachel loved calling it our little escape whenever she needed peace, but she rarely remembered whose work had actually built it. I took a long breath before speaking again. "Tom, whatever you do, don't confront them. Just keep your phone ready. I don't want anyone alerted." He didn't ask why. He simply said, "I'm with you." About 20 minutes later, I called Mr. Collins, the caretaker responsible for maintaining the property whenever Rachel and I weren't there. He'd been looking after the house for almost 15 years. I explained the situation to him without exaggeration. After a long, heavy silence, he sighed. "Daniel, I was wondering when you'd find out." My heart sank. "What do you mean by that, Mr. Collins?" He hesitated before admitting that this was not the first time Rachel had visited with the man driving the Ferrari. They had been coming to the property for several weekends over the past 2 months, always during the stretches when I was traveling for work. Mr. Collins had assumed I already knew, because Rachel confidently introduced the man as a close family friend, and the two of them behaved like they had every right to be there. I thanked him for his honesty and hung up the phone without another word. Suddenly, the betrayal was no longer about one careless weekend. It was about months of deception hidden inside the very place where we had celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, and family holidays together. Instead of driving to the country house in anger, I spent the next hour quietly making 3 phone calls. The first was to my attorney, to put him on standby and review the property documentation. The second was to my insurance company, to formally document unauthorized access to a residence in my name. The third was to Rachel's father. I didn't accuse his daughter of anything. I simply asked him one question, calmly and respectfully. "Would you be willing to take a drive with me tomorrow morning? I think you deserve to see something with your own eyes before anyone starts telling you their version of the story." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Daniel, is this about Rachel?" I replied softly, "Yes, but I'd rather show you than try to explain it over the phone." Early the next morning, before sunrise, Tom sent one final message. "They're still there. The Ferrari hasn't moved all night." I looked at Rachel's father, who was sitting silently in my passenger seat, and started the engine. Neither of us spoke during the drive. We both understood that whatever waited behind those gates was going to change our lives forever, one way or another. When we reached the country house, Tom was waiting across the road. He didn't wave or say much. He simply pointed toward the driveway, where the bright red Ferrari sat parked exactly where he had described it the night before. Rachel's father looked at the car, then at me, and quietly whispered, "Please tell me there's another explanation." I didn't answer. I just opened the gate. We walked through the front entrance together. Before we even reached the porch, soft laughter drifted up from the backyard. Rachel was sitting beside the man from the Ferrari, both of them drinking coffee like they had spent the night there without a single care in the world. She looked up, saw us standing there, and the smile disappeared from her face instantly. The coffee cup slipped from her trembling hand and shattered on the patio stone. The man beside her stood up so fast he knocked his chair over backward. Rachel's father didn't shout. He didn't need to. He simply looked at his daughter and asked, with disappointment cutting through every word, "Is this why you told your husband not to come?" She couldn't answer. Her silence said everything the rest of her life would have struggled to explain. The man finally introduced himself as Ethan, a wealthy property developer Rachel had met at a charity event a few months earlier. He tried to explain himself by saying Rachel had told him our marriage was already over, that we were only living under the same roof until the divorce paperwork was finished. I almost laughed out loud, because that was news to me. I pulled out my phone and calmly showed him a photo Rachel had posted just 2 weeks earlier, celebrating our wedding anniversary. The caption read, "Lucky to spend another year with my amazing husband." Ethan's expression changed immediately. He turned toward Rachel, disbelief tightening his jaw. "You told me you were separated." Rachel burst into tears, but she couldn't keep her story straight. For the first time, the lies she had been telling both of us collided in the same place, in the same morning, with no way out. Ethan quietly picked up his car keys. "If you lied about this, I don't know what else you've lied about." Without another word, he walked to the Ferrari, started the engine, and drove away from our property, leaving Rachel standing alone in the yard. Rachel broke down completely after Ethan left. She begged her father to say something, to defend her, to soften what had just happened, but he looked more disappointed than angry. "Your husband didn't embarrass you today," he said quietly. "Your own choices did." He then turned to me and apologized for not noticing the warning signs earlier. As we walked back toward the front door of the house, Rachel followed us, crying and promising she could explain everything if we would just let her talk. I stopped at the door, reached into my pocket, and handed her a small envelope. Inside was a single house key and a folded letter from my attorney. "What's this?" she asked, her hands shaking. "It's not an eviction notice," I replied. "It's a reminder that this house was built with trust. The day you decided to turn it into a place for lies, it stopped being your escape." Rachel stood frozen as she read the letter. For the first time, I believe she understood that I had not spent the night planning revenge. I had spent it protecting what remained of my peace. Months later, people in our small town still talk about the morning the Ferrari disappeared from our country house. Some believe I engineered the entire confrontation down to the smallest detail. Others think I was simply lucky the truth revealed itself when it finally did. The reality is much simpler than either of those stories. I never wanted a dramatic ending to my marriage. I wanted honesty. If Rachel had come to me and told me she no longer loved me, I would have respected her decision, painful as it would have been. I would have wished her well and made space for both of us to move forward. Instead, she chose deception, and deception always demands a higher price than the truth ever does. Tom still apologizes from time to time for sending that first message. I always tell him the same thing. "You didn't ruin my marriage. You saved me from living inside a lie." Looking back, the most powerful part of that weekend was not watching the Ferrari drive away. It was realizing that the moment I stopped chasing excuses and started facing reality was the moment I finally got my life back.